Get involved, get loud, and think on the brink. You know, I spoke to IQ, and I met him the other day on national radio, and I just felt we really need to have him on for our audience, and we need to be speaking to him. Now, listen, you were born in Iraq, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And you, how long ago was it you were exiled from Iraq?
Quite a long time. I don't want to give too much information for the enemy.
Okay.
But it's been a long time.
All right, fine. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. And from what I understand, your parents had sent you to school to study engineering at a university in England, huh?
That's true, yes.
Yeah, and then you stayed because you discovered that the programming you had received at home about other people was one-sided and wrong. Now listen, I find that a fascinating piece of information because I have often said, IQ, that, you know, there are a lot of good people around the world that are being misinformed, that don't really understand the truth. I want to start off here, and I want you to bring the story forward with me. Help me understand the biggest problem we have right now with Islam, Christianity, and where we sit right now in relationships in the Middle East, brother.
Well, not considering the fact that 99% of the humanity, 99%, including the Muslims, have absolutely no idea what Islam is all about, especially in the West. You see, in the West, they honestly believe that Islam is a religion, similar to the Judeo-Christian tradition. Well, they're very wrong. Islam is not a religion. Islam is a cult belief system, the cult of Muhammad. People speak about tolerance. They don't understand that tolerance has limitations. Unlimited tolerance must lead to the disappearance of tolerance. There is a saying, if we extend unlimited tolerance even to those who are intolerant, if we are not prepared to defend a tolerant society against the onslaught of the intolerant, then the tolerant will be destroyed and tolerance with them. We should therefore claim in the name of tolerance the right not to tolerate these intolerant. In a nutshell, Islam is the most intolerant belief system the world has ever known.
Well, and I want to jump in and tell you, but yet what we're seeing in the past decade is the spread of Islam around the world, and from a lot of facts and figures that I've looked at, IQ, this is probably the single biggest dangerous element, this cult to society today, is it not?
It is. I'll tell you what, calling Islam peaceful or a religion ranks as one of the most egregious lies that has ever been insinuated into the human consciousness. You know, people cannot believe me when I say these things, because after all, I'm not quoting anything for them. So I'm going to quote for the American listeners, verses from the Quran, translated to English by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the most fundamentalist Muslim state in the world. And it goes like this.
So this is straight from the Quran now, yes?
I'm quoting from the Quran in chapter and verse.
Okay.
Al-Tawbah, chapter 9, verse 29, says, fight, qatilu, in Arabic, those who believe not in Allah nor the last day, nor hold that forbidden which has been forbidden by Allah and His Apostle Muhammad, nor acknowledge the religion of truth, Islam, even if they are of the people of the book, Christians and Jews, until they pay the jizya. By the way, the jizya is an onerous tax for not being a Muslim. And they have to pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves humiliated. We are talking about Jews and Christians. Just to make sure that our listeners would believe what I'm revealing, I would like to put forth a challenge worth $100,000 to the first person who can show us all a single operative verse in Muhammad's Quran that demonstrates any compassion and mercy to all unbelievers. Currently, ladies and gentlemen, unbelievers represent 80% of humanity. All Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, Jews, atheists, agnostics, that is any and all those who are not followers of Muhammad.
So if you, let me jump in and ask, so if you believe 80% of humanity are the non-believers, and that, I mean, obviously this is the biggest problem, is trying to educate people, and that's part of your mission here, yes?
Absolutely. Our problem is not only ignorance, but utter stupidity. I'll tell you why it is stupidity. We watch television. Since 9/11, for 24 hours a day, every television station shows Muslims committing acts of terror. 99% of all acts of terror around the world are committed by Muslims. But what do they tell you? The media tells you and the Muslims tell you this is a minority, a small percentage. Well, ladies and gentlemen, even 1% of 1,500 million adds up to at least 15 million terrorists.
Right. And hold on a moment. Is that all right? So we talk about the spread of Al-Qaeda. We speak about the Taliban in Afghanistan. And, you know, one of the things I want to say is that over the past couple of years, the administration here in Washington, President Obama, and many others have touted the successful, the fact that they've been very successful with taking out some of the top Al-Qaeda leadership. But yet I keep seeing there's a breeding ground for new terrorist activities. I'm seeing it in Africa. North Africa is a hot spot. You're seeing it in South America. You're seeing it in Canada. You're seeing it in the U.S. here. So what you're saying is there's no stopping this. It is so widespread, and there are so many, and it's a proliferation, is it not?
It is, but not only proliferation. Let me ask you a question. Supposing somebody is a Catholic. A Catholic believes in the Trinity. He believes that the Pope is a representative of Jesus on earth. Am I right so far?
Yes.
And if he is a fundamentalist Catholic, a believing Catholic, he follows the scripture. Am I right so far?
Yes, yes.
Since every believing Muslim has to read the Quran and has to read the Sunnah of Muhammad, this constitutes Sharia. So they have to follow Sharia. So automatically every single Muslim can either be a traitor in waiting or a traitor in action. But a traitor they are.
Wow.
It sounds, yeah, I know, it sounds outrageous.
Yeah.
It sounds obscene. It sounds racist. But it is not outrageous. It is not racist. And it is not obscene because these are the facts.
Okay.
The minute a Muslim says, I am a believer.
All right. I want to fast forward a moment with you, and I have some specific questions and some things I want to discuss in relationship. Help me with current events. I want to bring it to the Arab Spring, all the way forward to the changes in Egypt. Listen, here was my biggest concern, IQ, and I want you to understand. When a lot of these countries started to fall, when a lot of the dictators started to come down, when you've seen this thing spread, oh my God, through via social media, technology, communications, it was spreading from country to country to country to country. What concerned me at that time was the fact that who in itself was going to run these countries now? There was a vacuum of leadership. I was very concerned back then that there would be a bigger problem ahead, and I quite frankly thought Washington, D.C. was being a bit ignorant to the fact that, you know, I mean, this sounds a bit strange, but some of the people we had in some of those countries were better off to leave there as dictators where things were sort of calm than the fact that we helped get them out. And then the next thing I know, we've got a worse situation in some of those countries now that is creating a real firebed opportunity in the Middle East. Do you agree with any of that, or am I way off base?
You are spot on 100%, and I'll tell you why. When the Arab Spring started 2.5 years ago, it started in Tunisia.
That's right.
And anybody who does not believe me can Google my name and listen to all the talks that I had. I had about 200 radio talk shows with the United States.
No, it was in Tunisia. I talked about on national radio when it happened. It was absolutely Tunisia.
It was in Tunisia it started. But what I said at the time, which I predicted at the time, which is 2.5 years ago, I said, by getting rid of these leaders who are currently running the show, the only people who will gain will be the Muslim Brotherhood. And I said why? Because the Muslim Brotherhood is the best organized and the most ruthless. And that is exactly what happened.
Amazing.
In Egypt, in Libya, in Morocco, and now what's happening in Syria is the same. And America is repeating the same mistake. They want to support the so-called opposition. The opposition are more radical than Bashar al-Assad. Obama has made huge mistakes in the last 4 years, and he's going to make bigger mistakes in the next 4 years.
I see it happening.
I said it before he was elected. I said it while he was elected, and I repeat myself again. Supporting the Muslim Brotherhood. Yes, sir. He, Obama, and Hillary Clinton gave the whole of North Africa to the Muslim Brotherhood.
All right, how did he give North Africa to the Muslim Brotherhood? Tell me.
Simple. He got rid of the president of Egypt, Hosni Mubarak, who was a friend of the United States.
Mubarak was a big friend of the United States, and there were a lot of years between them.
So 30 years he was supporting the United States of America.
That's right.
He also got rid of Gaddafi, physically used American forces to have Gaddafi destroyed.
And Gaddafi was really just a measle. I mean, he wasn't really hurting anything, was he?
No. The irony now, the French and the Americans who destroyed Gaddafi are now paying the price in Mali, in Chad, and in Algeria.
And I knew it, and I knew it, and I knew it when Gaddafi went down. Nobody liked the man. I mean, it's not like he was, the popular guy in town, but I knew darn well that that would come back to haunt us because there was nothing else in place. In other words, he was a better enemy to keep closer to you than what was behind the door behind him, correct?
100%.
Yeah,
Again,
I knew
correct.
it.
World-renowned Dr. Bonatti created the Bonatti Spine procedures to minimize surgery, scarring, and recovery. 45,000 procedures have resulted in over 94% satisfaction. Nearly half our patients suffer from failed surgeries at other facilities. Bonatti succeeds where others fail.
Remember, every tax problem does have a solution.
All right, so help me now understand. Let's bring it forward for our viewers to understand, IQ, what we have. Okay, so now we have, just some months ago, we had at the United Nations, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu got up in front of a lot of people, a worldwide audience. He drew the red line on the poster. Did you see that episode?
Of course I
Yeah,
do.
of course. And he talked about giving Iran more time, giving the United States more time. I was floored when I seen that. I was absolutely beyond words because I, quite frankly, thought Netanyahu was doing a respectable job out there. I don't think it was perfect, but I think he was doing a respectable job. As you know, he barely won re-election recently. Bottom line, I was surprised when Iran is moving so aggressively to nuclear activity that he was willing to give more time to President Obama, who clearly we know is a very non-confrontational president, who does not want war, who will not get involved in war. I mean, he is about as a threat to us as the Girl Scouts of America are. What say you?
You're right. But one thing, what we said that he doesn't want to interfere in war. He does want to interfere in war, but he goes against the weak ones. He went after Gaddafi. Why isn't he going after Syria? I'll tell you why. Because the Syrian Air Force would shoot American planes down, while Gaddafi could not have done that.
All right, so what will happen to Assad now, President Assad, who's doing these egregious attacks in Syria? What do you see happening with him?
When he goes down, we will have nuclear war in the Middle East.
When Assad goes down?
Absolutely.
And when do you suspect that will happen?
Could be within this year or beginning of next year.
And why will Assad go down at that point? Because you're saying, as bad, are you saying to me again, now let me be clear, that as bad as Assad is, and he is, are you saying that what's behind the door again with Assad is again the brother Muslimhood and the spread of Islam? Is that what you're saying?
100%,
Wow.
and it will be worse than even in Algeria, in Egypt, and in Libya.
Well, it's a volatile situation, clearly. All right, so at that point, that happens. All right, who makes the first strike, in your opinion? Does the first strike come from Iran? Does it come from Israel? Does it come from Libya, Syria? Where's the first strike come from?
Now, what will happen, that's my prediction, of course. When Assad falls, the Syria will go into anarchy. There's no question about that one. And when it goes into anarchy, they will have the Sunnis and the Shias fighting each other, as well as trying to get Israel involved. They will attack Israel out of malice, mostly out of malice, not because of they are thinking about it in logical way. Israel cannot afford to have a short or a long conventional war. It cannot do it. It's only 8,000 square miles with 5.5 million people surrounded by 4.5 million square miles with 500 million people who are enemies. She cannot have a conventional war, not anymore. They have to go nuclear.
So at this point, all right, so the first strike you're thinking comes from, you said?
From the Muslims, always from the Muslims.
So we're not sure what country, but we know it's coming from the Muslims. Got it.
Oh, 100%. Look, for 1,400 years, Islam has been the most aggressive enemy in the world. For 1,400 years, starting with Muhammad.
Understand.
They never stopped. Their agenda, it is a public agenda. This is the most remarkable thing about Islam. It's not a hidden agenda.
Right.
They tell you 24 hours a day, in every mosque, in every lecture, by every imam, that the requirement of Islam is to Islamize the whole of humanity.
And that I understand fully. That I understand fully, and I mean, I see this. I've studied, I've read it. I know that is the ambition and the desire, and that is the end goal. Now, so once the first strike happens, and again, we have this debacle out here, Israel, you say, has no choice but to use nuclear activities, right?
I have no doubt about it in my mind.
When that happens, Iran responds with, do you think Iran will have nuclear activities at that point or not really?
Iran is much further ahead than most people estimate.
I've been saying it right along. I've been saying it right along. It's a charade. A charade, a charade, a charade. So what is the answer right now, IQ? Is the answer to get aggressive and go after Iran right now, or what do you deem the answer to be?
The only country on earth who has the power to do that, in combination with Israel, will be the United States of America.
So
Israel alone cannot do it.
No, there's no way Israel, and I've said that. Everybody says, well, Israel can protect themselves. I'm not seeing it that way either, and you don't believe that's the case either, huh?
No, she can protect herself, but not against 500 million people.
I understand.
Not against hundreds of thousands of rockets. It's impossible.
On every border, on every country, on every situation, correct?
Absolutely right.
I see it. So they would be drowned out. And you know, I was in Israel about a year and a half ago. It's an absolutely magnificent country, you know, and spend some time out there, and you know, and you just have to appreciate the history out there, IQ, you know, and it's just it blows your mind, doesn't it?
You know what? You won't believe it. I've been to Israel 3 times.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't go as al-Rasuli, obviously. And it's an amazing country. Surrounded, I mean, you know, when you fly coming into Israel, you see greenery. And further down, when you go towards, when your eyesight goes towards Syria or towards Jordan, you have desert.
Right. It's an
and then when you land in Israel, it's a Western country.
It's an amazing landscape. It's an amazing landscape.
Yes,
it just takes your mind away. Visiting Bethlehem and Jerusalem and taking the walk through the walk of the Lord and just all of the things we did out there. Absolutely amazing. All right, so the only thing that can stop this at this point is clearly the United States of America taking this seriously, and in cooperation with Israel that could turn the tide back. And to do that, we would have to completely change the game of cards at this point, because it doesn't look like we're headed that way, does it?
No, but let me add something else very important. The other countries who would support the United States and Israel, you won't believe it, will be Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the Gulf states, and Jordan.
will all support the United States.
100% they are afraid of Iran because Iran is Shia Islam.
Well, they
The others are Sunni Muslims.
Yeah, well, you know, they have always supported the United States, and again, it comes back to how you and I started the show. There's a lot of egregious things Saudi Arabia has done. They're one of those folks that on some day they're perceived as your enemy, but then they're your friend. And again, it comes back to the Middle East strategy: is today's enemy is tomorrow's friend, is to the next day's enemy, and you better keep some of those enemies pretty close by, huh?
Absolutely right.
Yeah, I see it, buddy. I see it. It's a hell of a strategy when you see what's going on out there. So really, the idea is to get the message out and educate people on what exactly is going on. Do you think Americans can really, truly understand this at some point if we continue to get the message out there, IQ? Obviously, you're still trying. I give you 100% credit. The fact I was on radio with you the other day and the fact we're on television here today, you know, I take my hat off to you that you're out there really trying to get the message out there. Do you think there's hope?
There is great hope, but I'll tell you what the problem is. We can completely discredit Muhammad and his Quran and the whole of Islam in 1 year if the media were not politically correct. All you need to do, literally all we need to do, is every single day in every single medium show one of my chapters, literally, or address one of the verses of the Quran. You know, Pastor Jones from Florida, he burned the Quran. I had an argument with him at the time. I said, you should not have burned the Quran. You had the whole media circus all around you. Instead, you should have stood and read the verses of the Quran. You would have done 1,000,000 times more damage.
Oh, that's a great advice. That's a great advice. And I remember when that happened with the Reverend. I remember that. Listen, now, when you say your chapters, I see a book here you've written, Lifting the Veil, correct?
Yes.
Now, I want to make sure I understand this. Are you saying if the media would read chapters from Lifting the Veil or from the Quran? Which are you saying?
No, chapters from Lifting the Veil. I have 312 audio videos called Idiot's Guide to Islam on YouTube.
All right, fair. I'm going to start to dive into that. Now, you and I will be talking more ahead. Lifting the Veil, that book is available where?
On Amazon.
Okay, fine. We will get a copy of that in. We will begin to look more at this. I will be doing more and more to help you spread the word of this. Listen, and that website again that people can find, Lifting the Veil, and more of your incredible information. What is that website again?
All they need to do is Google my name, Al Rassooli, ALRASSOOLI, and you will have everything there.
Yes, and you'll see it on the screen now, folks, and Al Rassooli, and he's right, because I did it the other day, and it just comes up immediately, and you can see what he's talking about. Listen, I can't thank you enough. It was such a joy to talk to you the other day on radio, national radio, and discuss some of this with you. I knew I had to dive into it a little bit more with you. You kind of scared the hell out of me with some of the things you said the other day, but I actually, I understand this. I've been studying it from the standpoint of what we're talking about, and I do believe we are on a road to nuclear holocaust in the Middle East, that the ramifications that will reverberate around the world is something we haven't seen before, huh?
Absolutely right.
Yeah. Such a pleasure. You're such a gentleman. It's such a pleasure to have you with me. We shall talk again. Al Rassooli, it's Malcolm Out Loud here. Remember, get involved, get loud, and extra loud in this case. Thank you for joining me.